Hi, welcome to the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and comment your thoughts and opinions on the stories. Let's get started. Am I the antagonist for expecting my husband's ex to change her name? I, 45-year female, have been married to my husband 55-year male for 5 years. Together for 6, 1, 2, yes. Both of us have children from previous marriages. When we married, his daughter was in her late teens, and now in her early 20s. Her mom, his ex, was engaged to another man and eventually did marry him, but their marriage ended before their 2-year mark. When she married him, she took on her new husband's last name. I knew this because I'm friends with my stepdaughter on FB, who gets tagged by her mom on a lot of posts, so I'm able to see her mom's profile info. Well, fast forward to recently, I was scrolling through FB and a post with my stepdaughter tagged showed up. Let's be clear, I was not searching through her profile. It just came up on my feed as many other friends' posts do. Well, I happened to notice that she was tagged by her mom. His name, I noticed, was changed back to my husband's last name. I found this strange, since they had divorced over 10 years ago and she took the time to change her last name to a new man's name. The back to my husband's. She had to actively change it when she got her divorce from her last husband, so she intentionally did this. Not like it just defaulted back. So I asked my husband if knew anything about it, and he had no clue. He asked his ex if she legally changed it or if it was just on FB. She confirmed that she legally changed it back to his name and said it was none of his business. But he and a lot of his family felt uncomfortable with this. She has no ties to his family whatsoever. She became more defensive and stated her reasoning was to share the same last name as her daughter, as she wanted the credit, literally her exact words, for raising her, which I feel is a strange claim to make regarding your child, as though she is an object or something. She said all kinds of things about me and accused me of Facebook stalking her, which she thought is how I found out. The issue for me is that my stepdaughter is in a very serious relationship and plans to get married soon. She plans to take on her husband's last name. So what is her mom going to do then? Take on her daughter's husband's last name so she can match names and take credit? I don't know, I've dropped the issue. I know I'm the one and only Mrs. But I was just curious. What do y'all think? Am I the asshole? Is it weird to change your name back to your ex of over 10 years ago, even though he has remarried? I found it kind of sad, honestly, and clingy. Like, move on already. It's not clinging or depressing, and it most likely has nothing to do with your husband. She most certainly had that last name for a number of years, so it feels natural to her, since there is no problem. End the drama and move on. Comment by team member Alex. Now for the top comments. AITA. She has no ties to the family whatsoever. Except, I don't know, her daughter? It's none of your business what name she feels most comfortable with. She doesn't have to change it if her daughter changes hers. She likely just feels like of the 3 last names she's had, that's the one she's most comfortable with. The big question is, why do you even care? You're coming off as jealous of a woman who hasn't been in your life for over a decade, and it's not a good look at all. Exactly. I was married for only 2 years, but I kept my name because of my daughter. It has now been my name longer than my original last name, so it is what I'm most comfortable with. The ex has nothing to do with it anymore. AITA. My first marriage lasted almost 20 years. He was an abusive alcoholic. I developed my career during that time, and in my industry I'm known by my ex's last name. When I divorced, I kept the name because that's what all my customers knew. I'd spent more time as that person than I'd lived with my maiden name. When I remarried years later, I kept the name with my new husband's full awareness and blessing. It has nothing to do with my ex's identity and everything to do with mine. Am I the antagonist for being upset that my wife wants me to use all my vacation time for her family events? My wife, 35F, and I, 37 male, have been married for 10 years and have 2 kids, 8 and 5. Last year my wife was offered a pretty big promotion at her job. It's a huge step up and a big boost to her career goals, but it would require a relocation. After talking it over, we decided she should take it. We moved about 6 months ago. I was able to get a new job in our new city, but I only get 10 vacation days for the first year. Part of my wife's promotion was that she got a lot more vacation days. She has 5 weeks. She's already used a couple weeks of her vacation time for trips with her friends or sisters. I've stayed home with the kids while she's on these trips. She also took the kids on a trip while I stayed at home. She still has over 2 weeks of vacation time left. We've started discussing our holiday plans for this coming winter, and she wants to go visit her parents for an extended visit. She wants to take time off around Christmas and New Year's and stay with them for 2 weeks. That's all well and good, but that's pretty much all of my vacation time. I told her that I don't want to use all of my vacation time just to go and see her family. I said I would be okay with using 5 days or so, but I want to save some time for me to use for things I want to do, like she did. She got upset because she wants us all to be together for the holidays, and since the kids have all that time off school anyway, it makes sense to her that we would stay for a long time. We also haven't seen her parents since we moved, so I get why she wants to stay that long. I've tried offering that she can stay for as long as she wants with the kids and I would head home by myself early, but that wasn't acceptable because she doesn't want to fly with both kids by herself. Which I understand, but I'm just trying to compromise. She wants to start booking flights, and I'm not willing to use all my vacation time for one trip to see her family. We got into a fight over it because she's not willing to accept my compromises. I finally got mad at her and told her that she got to use as much time as she wanted to do fun things for herself while I watch the kids, and I want to be able to do the same. I told her that it's great that she has so many new benefits from her new job, but I had to start over and I don't have those same options. She took that as me being resentful for moving, which isn't true. I'm happy she got promoted and I'm not mad about relocating, but I'm upset that she isn't willing to understand that my work circumstances are drastically different from hers now. I'm not willing to budge on this, and she's mad at me that I'm not simply going along with what she wants to do. I know it's important that she sees her family, but I just want the option to do fun things for myself like she did. She thinks I'm being petty and stubborn because I'm jealous of her promotion. NTA, to make her see that you are not being ungrateful, but rather asking for some equity, I would insist on couples counseling, just like she did. You ought to be let to travel and have child-free days. It is unjust and inappropriate of her to determine how it should be used. Comment by team member Cody. Now for the top comments. NTA, I don't see anything wrong with your compromise and she's not willing to compromise at all by the sounds of it. NTA, your children are 8 and 5. There is no reason that she can't travel alone with them. It's ridiculous to expect you to use your limited vacation time to visit your in-laws while your wife is living her best life. It's not about being resentful, it's about not wanting to spend all of your vacation time visiting family. Your wife is being very unreasonable. If she is that opposed to flying with them by herself, would she buy you a round trip ticket so you could come pick them up? This would still allow you to save a week of your vacation time and plan something fun. NTA, op. Tell your wife that 2 weeks with her family would leave you no vacation days for anything else. What about your side of the family? She needs to be aware that some people don't get more days off until later on at the same job. She's not being considerate here. I've been no contact with almost all of my family since before we got married. No need to get into why, but I'm definitely not using vacation time to see my family. Am I the antagonist for telling my former brother-in-law that my sister's money for their children is nothing to do with him? I lost my sister Ma to cancer 11 years ago. She left behind her son Kay who was 4 and her daughter Ella who was 3. My sister was married to Luke, but when she became ill, she had turned to me and the rest of the family for help with her kids' inheritance. She asked that we buy her out of her share of the business our grandparents left us many years ago, so she could leave her kids money. We did just that, and it allowed her to leave a sizable sum for both kids. It's enough to cover college for both and leave them with money for something else. Or they could buy a house each. My sister just wanted them to have something real. that could be there for them when she couldn't be. She ended up leaving me in charge of the accounts for the kids. Luke met his current wife 2 years after my sister died and married her within 6 months and added 5 more kids over the following 3 years. They have struggled over the years. One of his stepchildren has physical health issues. Another is special needs and requires a lot of therapies. Money is often tight. We have been made aware of this by him over the years. He didn't know about the money until he actually read the letter my sister left for him, which informed him of the existence of the money. Ever since he learned of it 18 months ago, he has been determined to get his hands on it. He has accused me of letting my nephew and niece starve when I could have dipped into the account, which I can't, and which I didn't. They never starved. He said I was dividing his family and so on. He told me that money needs to be split 7 ways, that Ma was selfish to keep the money from his reach, so he couldn't use it on all his kids, that it was selfish of her to come between his family after she died, since he had been a loyal husband to her. One of his stepchildren ended up missing out on an opportunity due to a lack of money. He tried to get my niece and nephew to ask me for money for their step-sibling to do it, but the kids said in front of him that they wanted to keep the money in the account, which angered him. He told me I didn't have the right to do this, that his kids' money should be accessible by him, their father. I told him that the money my sister left for their children is nothing to do with him, that my sister made it so, and he needed to act like it doesn't exist, since it doesn't for anyone but my nephew and niece. Let's just say he wasn't happy. Am I the antagonist for what I said? Ma's husband's new children had nothing to do with the money she left him. I would see a lawyer for assistance and write down the threats he is making against you. You have proof that Luke started making a scene as soon as he found out about the money, in case he were to ever take this to court or you were to take him to court. Comment by team member Parker. Now for the top comments. NTA. I'm gobsmacked he thinks her inheritance should go to children that aren't hers. Possibly she knew the real story about his money requirements, hence making up the poor offer the inheritance and making it ironclad until the kids are of age. NTA, but really, were you in doubt on that point? You said it yourself, there's a reason your sister wanted you to manage the trust instead of Luke, and it's because you're determined to make sure it goes toward giving them a good future, not covering basic necessities he should have considered before taking on so many kids. It is definitely extremely telling that sister did not trust Luke to be responsible with his own children's money, whatever his dealies. It didn't start with his second marriage. NTA. His children with another woman have no right to that money under any theory I can formulate. Am I the antagonist for refusing to pay for my husband's family to go on vacation with us and then leaving without him? Emma 45F. I share 4 beautiful children, 23, 20, 17, 14, with my husband. We've been together for nearly 30 years and married for 24. We always take a big family vacation every summer. Due to COVID, that was put on a hiatus. Usually he pays for his parents, and vice versa. Together we pay for our children. One of his brothers needed help, so my husband decided to cover him and his family. My husband retired a couple years ago. We've always had separate accounts and a joint account. He has always been an avid hunter and fisherman. We are not rich, but we do live comfortably. I managed our finances to get us to this point. Now when he retired he started managing his money because I didn't agree with his irrational purchases. He recently invested a large portion of his savings into a large hunting tract, citing it was a steal he couldn't turn down. Mind you, we live on a large property where the hunting game is in abundance. I didn't understand the need to buy more acreage. Maybe it's a hunting thing. If there's any hunters on here, please let me know. I reminded him that our trip was coming up and that he should have waited to make the purchase, since to cover his brother and his family of 6 plus his parents would be expensive. He assured me that he had it covered. I come home to a pretty boat in our driveway. I don't know a thing about boats, but all I saw was money. My husband receives a nice pension each month, but a percentage of it goes to our joint account and the rest to his savings. I calculated the land, and finally learning about the price of the boat I knew he couldn't possibly have enough to cover the trip, which included our kids as well. So I asked him how he was planning on paying. He said he had it covered. Time rolls around for us to book everything. He mentions that he noticed I had a significant amount of money in my personal account and was wondering if I could pay for the entire trip and he would pay me back his half. I told him no. He was aware of this trip and ignored it. My husband hates owing anybody and therefore he would find a reason why he shouldn't have to pay me back, which is a con artist move to me. I proposed he sign an agreement to repay me with interest if he didn't pay me back in a set amount of time. We had a huge argument about it and he ended up leaving. I called and texted. No response. I received nasty texts from mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and his sisters about how I was treating him. Therefore, I booked my family and I was even kind enough to purchase his ticket, though I hadn't seen or heard from him in over 2 weeks. The moment we left for vacation, the harassing calls and texts started. I turned my phone off and enjoyed my vacation. I came home to a nasty letter and his wedding ring, stating that he won't be returning until I apologized to him and his family for how I'd treated them. I'm not apologizing, but I'm wondering, am I wrong for not paying and suggesting him pay me back? You might be better off without him. According to NTA, a marriage will always end with a boat. You shouldn't use money from your savings to pay for his impulsive purchases, especially since you're probably not familiar with either of their names. Comment by team member Parker. Now for the top comments. NTA, you had an agreement about how to split the costs of the trip and he decided he wanted to change it, then got mad when you wouldn't change the plans to pay for his mistakes. It seems like you know he wouldn't be very good about paying you back. However, you still offered a solution to this by a signed document. He messed up and expects you to fix it, and not just fix it, but fix it in the way he wants. You are 100% right and justified in this. Out of curiosity, did he still at least save enough for your normal shared expenses? If not, you may have a bigger problem on your hands. Yes, our joint account is fine. There's no issue there. I honestly think he's having a hard time readjusting to civilization. He's a vet. Served for 30 years. NTA, it sounds like, after you managing the household finances for 30 years, your husband has no idea how to actually manage his own finances. Also, the entitlement from his family is unreal. They are not owed an all-expense paid vacation from you, and not getting one is not them being mistreated in any way. Your husband prioritized spending money on hunting and boating over the vacation. What happened then? His family not going is simply a consequences of his own choices, and threatening the marriage over this is extremely immature on his part. Am I the antagonist for giving my wedding photographer a bad review? Tar account. I got married 2 months ago. Was a moderate affair. Open bar. Nice dress. No kids at a slightly more upscale place than I would have liked, but I guess you only live once. We hired a photographer through a company. A mid-sized place that assigned you an employee. We met with her a few times to go over expectations, venues, etc. No red flags. Nothing weird. Day of the wedding she shows up in a sheer white blouse with lace. Completely see-through, with no bra. I noticed. My husband noticed. Everyone noticed. I, and most of my guests, just spent the evening trying to look away. All through the reception I could overhear people talking about it, or joking about it. My husband and I had a good laugh about it after everything was done. Just sort of a WTF was that? Did that really happen? I guess every wedding needs a weird story. At least mine didn't involve a guest. Couple of weeks ago we got the photo package. It was good and in line with what we paid for. 2 days later I get one of those automatic emails for a survey asking how they did. Overall I rated them well, and even rated the photographer well except for the professional category. I gave a 3 out of 5, and in the box, filled in that I felt her clothing could be more professional. A manager called me for more clarity. I explained the outfit and said it wasn't a big deal, but wasn't really situationally appropriate. Manager didn't say much, but sounded serious and thanked me for informing them. End of story, right? Well, nope. On the weekend, photographer girl shows up drunk on my lawn wearing 3 bras and starts screaming at my house. Long story short, she was let go from her job and felt I was the to blame. Eventually we had to call the police to have her removed. People I know are torn. Some think it was funny and I should have let it go. Others think it deserved to be called out. Am I the antagonist? Not a peep show. You were paying for a professional photographer. It is completely inappropriate to dress in a way that draws attention and comments from others. This isn't the first time this has been a problem. If her boss called for more details and then dismissed her after getting your call. Comment by team member Alex. Now for the top comments. NTA, and you didn't leave a bad review. One data point you marked low, the rest you didn't. You were honest, and she was unprofessional for a wedding. To be fair, 3/5 is good or fair, basically average. NTA, you gave a fair and honest review. It sounds like this wasn't the only time that employee had shown up for events inappropriately dressed. A photographer should blend into the background and not be noticeable, not be the thing that stands out about your wedding. She got herself fired. You did nothing wrong. Any wedding photographers I've seen seem to be purposely dressed really plain. Usually a simple black shirt and trousers with professional black shoes. Maybe a dark waistcoat or jacket to look nice and differentiate themselves from the wait staff. Am I the antagonist for calling my aunt and her daughter a brat? I, 28 male, got married last week. My wife and I decided on having no kids at the wedding. The day before our wedding, my best man's babysitter bailed. We know his kid well. He's an absolute saint. My cousin had offered to keep an eye on him for the day at the wedding, so his parents could enjoy themselves. So of course we said he could come. It was a no-brainer. We set up a couple little games and things for him to do, and organized some dinner for him, and he had a blast. The problem with this, though, is that my auntie also had to organize a babysitter for my cousin, 12F. She also had some trouble with her babysitter dropping out a week before the wedding, and she asked if she was able to just come along. We both said no. My cousin is a very misbehaved kid, and when she does misbehave, her parents never take accountability. For example, we had a BBQ a couple months ago at our house. I had my car parked in the shed, which I had made clear was off limits. The kids were playing hide and seek and my cousin had hid in there. She climbed on top of the car, leaving footprints and scratches. She slipped on her way back down. She was fine, just a bit hurt, and came out crying. We reminded her that the shed was off limits and expressed that we were upset she could have damaged the car, and she threw a full-blown tantrum about it. Everyone eventually just left her to sulk. Well, about 10 minutes later, my friend's kid came running up telling us that my cousin had done something in the shed. She had taken a screwdriver and scratched up the car and then thrown it at the windscreen. She then tried to blame it on the other kid, then immediately started crying to her mum, who just said, well, we don't know who it was for sure, so we can't just blame her. I asked if she would pay for the damages, and she said no. We almost uninvited her from the wedding then, but didn't want to deal with the drama with so much else going on. So when she approached my wife and I at the reception and complained about her kid not being invited, I was surprised. My wife said it was very last minute and moved on, but my aunt approached her again. She said how it's heartless to exclude a new family member, especially when we'd set up expecting children to come. I jumped in on the conversation saying it's too late now anyways and to just enjoy the night, but my aunt said, well, your cousin isn't enjoying her night right now, is she? So I said, and this is where my mum and wife think him the asshole, we would have loved to have your daughter here if she wasn't such a brat, and insinuated that my aunt was acting like one too. She shut up after that and, I think, went home. We hadn't heard from her at all, but she then made a Facebook post today about how I insulted her daughter. My wife is freaking out thinking my family's gonna hate her and is upset I had to be so mean to her. But I think it was her fault for pushing so much. Am I the antagonist? As soon as the car was damaged, I would have refused the aunt's invitation since, relative or not, cars are expensive. And I assume, if something is vital to you, it is in a shed. I believe your wife needs to keep in mind that her marriage is right now her top priority, not the rest of the family. Comment by team member Taylor. Now for the top comments. No, not the a-hole. Apparently she really is a brat. And it was your wedding. I mean, even if children were allowed at the wedding, I'd say not the a-hole to excluding the cousin. She damaged Op's property on purpose. She'd also be banned from my house, my car, and anything else I could ban her from. NTA and your aunt should pay for damages to your car. Actually, you should have said to her, well, we would have loved to have her at the wedding, but can't afford to pay for the damages she no doubt would have caused to the reception hall, especially since we have to pay for the damages she inflicted on our car. NTA, it sounds like you had children at your wedding anyway, since your aunt threw a fit at your big event and then posted on FB instead of telling you both she was upset.